On Mother's Day, May the 11th, 2008, in the quiet community of Lutz in Hillsborough County, Florida, a rage-filled man unleashed a nightmare on Lisa Freeberg and her 2 children.
He brutally attacked every single thing in that house. He killed 3 innocent people just because it's what he wanted to do.
The killer had left a trail of bodies for the police to find.
The mutilation that was done to these victims, the extent of the blood around the house, this was a pretty horrific scene.
Detectives found the killer hiding in a cupboard. 35-year-old Edward Covington was Lisa Freeberg's partner.
He's not human. He's a monster. How could he do that? I don't know.
So then the very next thing you remember
is all this chaos going on.
What's the chaos?
Killing.
Edward Covington's Mother's Day massacre had revealed him to be one of the world's most evil killers. On May the 29th, 2015, 7 years after the murders of Lisa Freeberg and her 2 children, 7-year-old Zachary and 2-year-old Savannah, 42-year-old Edward Covington was sentenced to death in the Circuit Court of Hillsborough County, Florida. It was a triple murder that sent shockwaves through the small community.
Edward Covington committed one of the most horrific, brutal crimes that Lutz community had ever seen. When you think about when it happened and who it happened to and how it happened, it's incredibly horrific.
The local press labeled Covington a monster.
The case of Edward Covington was called by the press a Mother's Day massacre, and that's genuinely what it was. He killed because he could and because he wanted to. It was a remorseless, horrid, obscene set of killings.
This killer's story begins in Florida on June the 13th, 1972. Edward Covington's life got off to a particularly bad start due to a mistake at the hospital where he was born.
We know comparatively little about his upbringing as a child, but what we do know is as an infant, a newborn, he was given a massive overdose of antibiotics in hospital, which caused him 30% hearing loss. And I think that had an impact on the rest of his life. He wanted to become a Navy pilot, but the hearing loss meant that he couldn't. And so there was always that inner rage, that sense of resentment that he always had, and that stayed with him.
He thought very highly of himself. He didn't respect anyone else. He didn't give people consideration. It was all about him.
As a teenager, Covington's mental health started to decline.
At the age of 15, Covington was hospitalized with the first of a number of episodes of mental problems. He was diagnosed with a chemical imbalance in his brain, and he was later diagnosed as being bipolar.
He was on medication, but on top of that, he started to use illicit drugs.
As Edward Covington reached adulthood, in a neighboring county, Lisa Freeberg was growing up with her parents and younger brother, Sean.
Lisa and I got along really well. We were about a year and a half, almost 2 years difference in age. We were always together. I have cerebral palsy, And because Lisa being the older sister in school, she didn't let no one bully me. She was just the best, bigger sister ever. If my mom needed her, she would come to her in a moment's notice. She was always reliable, always thinking of others. She gave her shirt off her back to just anyone that needed help.
On January 13th, 2001, when Lisa was 19 years old, she gave birth to her first child.
Zachary was a big surprise to all of us because Lisa was pretty young at the time. But, you know, accidents happen, and gratefully, it was a good accident, and she had an amazing son that was really caring, just like her.
Zachary's father didn't stick around, and Lisa was left to bring up her son alone.
Lisa was very concerned on how to be a mother at first, but working with our mom, she turned out to be a great mother herself. Our mom taught Lisa how to do basically everything, and she took that and ran.
In 2004, Lisa met a man and fell in love. And on May the 20th, 2005, when Zachary was 4 years old, she gave birth to a daughter, Heather Savannah.
Heather was her legal name because that's what her dad wanted. However, we always loved the name Savannah, and that's the name Lisa wanted. So that's what we called Savannah. When Zachary found out that he was gonna have a little sister, he was super excited that he was gonna be the big brother. They loved each other. You could tell that they loved each other.
Sean has fond memories of his time with the family.
I was the cool uncle, and I always, played with them and, gave them horseback rides or, played video games with Zachary. There was a lot of laughs, a lot of love. Just every day was special.
Lisa and her family lived in the small community of Lutz in North Hillsborough County, Florida.
It was a very working class neighborhood where people knew each other, and it wouldn't be a stretch to say people struggle in that area to make ends meet and to get by.
She worked a full-time job, did a lot of overtime hours, just to make sure she could give both children the life that they needed and she wanted to give them.
Meanwhile, on July 19th, 2004, 32-year-old Edward Covington had got married, but his drinking and drug-taking had spiraled out of control.
He had a history with crack cocaine and alcohol. When he was sober, he could be quite personable and very intelligent. But it seems every time he did mix those two, it would bring out a violent tendency in him.
And it was Covington's wife who bore the brunt of his violence.
He was physically abusive to her. He broke her wrist. He strangled her. He broke teeth out.
At the time, Covington was working as a prison officer for the Florida Department of Corrections, and he used this to his advantage whenever his wife called the police to report his violence.
Anytime there was any kind of contact with law enforcement, he was using that to sway their opinion. hoping that he would be more believable than, say, somebody else. And he pulled that trick multiple times to get out of trouble.
The entire thing is about him getting what he wants and manipulating everyone in his life.
Covington's wife had put up with enough. In 2007, she filed for divorce.
The marriage had been a terrible failure. In fact, when she left him, he took his revenge on her and decapitated 3 of her cats. Now, that's not the action of a man who's entirely in control of himself. It's a violent, vengeful, horrible thing to do.
That suggests to me that he escalates, and he escalates quickly when he is challenged. He's clearly got problems with relationships, he's clearly got problems with women, and he's clearly somebody who's quite happy to go to killing when he's challenged.
When his marriage ended, Covington moved into a trailer owned by his parents, 20 miles away from where Lisa Freeburg and her family lived in Lutz. In the same year, Lisa's relationship with her daughter Savannah's father came to an end, and Lisa decided to try online dating.
I know she was a single mom. She was raising her 2 kids. Relationship-wise, I know she was looking for somebody.
The dating site threw up a potential match for Lisa, 35-year-old Edward Covington.
I did hear that she was meeting this new guy, Edward, but I trusted her judgment. She was smart. She knew that her kids meant the most to her, and, you know, that's what she was looking for, was a father figure for Zachary, a father figure for Savannah. He seemed like a great guy at first.
But things were about to change. In the spring of 2008, Covington and Lisa took their relationship to the next level.
Because of his behaviour, his parents threw him out of the trailer that they owned. But at that point, Lisa said, well, you could come and live with us in Lutz. They'd only known each other about 6 months, and I don't suspect she had any inkling of his very checkered mental history and his violent first marriage.
She meets this individual and she entrusts him with her children, and he just used that as an opportunity to take advantage of them. So he was taking care of the children while she was making the money.
Lisa's family soon became concerned about Covington's behavior.
Once he moved in, we did start noticing more of a temper range. We noticed that he seemed like to snap quickly towards her. There was a cloud of uncertainty, almost like the kids didn't want to be there.
Lisa's family was starting to grow concerned for Lisa and the children, but they had no idea how much danger they were in until it was too late. By May 2008, Edward Covington had moved in with his girlfriend Lisa and her 2 children, 7-year-old Zachary and 2-year-old Savannah. Lisa's family had started to notice a change in the children's behavior when Covington was around.
I was told by my mom that when Zachary was getting in the truck with Lisa, and if Covington was there, Zachary had a scared look on his face.
When Lisa's family started noticing mysterious bruises on the children, they started to have concerns that Covington was harming them. They took photos of the injuries that they'd seen.
It just added ammo for our case against him that we were trying to build to show Lisa get away from this guy. We have pictures, we have the proof.
But Lisa's desperate family didn't get time to stage the intervention they felt was needed. Just 2 days after they took those photos was Mother's Day, May the 11th, 2008.
We were surprised when Lisa didn't show up to see her own mother on Mother's Day, and that's when we figured out something was wrong.
The next morning, Lisa's family were notified that Lisa hadn't turned up at the childminders or at work. Lisa's mum, Barbara, decided to go over to her daughter's home. She'd no idea she was about to encounter a scene of unimaginable horror.
When the mother arrived at the trailer to check on her daughter, she managed to get in the front door enough to then see one grandchild obviously murdered there on the floor in front of her. At that point, she backed out of the trailer and called her husband and called the police.
Barbara had seen her 7-year-old grandson's body lying by the front door. Zachary had been stabbed to death.
It's almost impossible to imagine the scene that confronted her. It was of such butchery, such carnage, that no one could really describe it without being horrified.
I can't imagine walking in and seeing my grandchild like that.
Police and emergency services raced to the scene. They included Detective Troy Morgan.
We showed up there at the location and discovered that there had been 3 people murdered inside. When I looked in the front door, the entire house was just trashed. Lisa's son was laying just inside the door. The one thing that stuck out the most was the area where his penis and his scrotum would be was missing. And it was just, you could see that it had been done post-mortem because there was no blood, there was no anything.
Two-year-old Savannah was lying just a few feet away from her brother. She had been decapitated.
What could a 2-year-old child have possibly done to incur that kind of wrath?
I couldn't see where Lisa was actually at until I went around on the backside, and then I could see her laying there in the hallway.
Lisa's body was covered in multiple injuries, and her throat had been cut.
It was probably one of the worst scenes I've ever been a part of.
As they searched the house, the police also discovered that the family dog had been killed.
It was a lot to take in because there was just so much chaos. Seeing the level of dismemberment, it's not normal.
There was no sign of the attacker. Police presumed the person responsible must have fled the scene. But then someone heard a noise coming from the closet.
Patrol deputies were clearing the house, and then one of them heard something, and they located him inside the bedroom closet.
Crouched down and covered in blood was Lisa's boyfriend, Edward Covington.
He was hiding, but they were able to see part of his actual body there, and they called him out and had him show his hands and come out.
As he was escorted out of the house and put into the back of the police cruiser, he says to the officers, "I can't believe what I've done."
It was left to Lisa's mum, Barbara, to break the news to Sean.
I was getting ready to go to work, and I was actually pulling out of my aunt's driveway when my mom called me and told me to not go to work, to come home. Once I got home and I saw the police cars in front of the house, my mom broke the news to me right in the driveway that she found Lisa and the kids, and they were no longer with us.
Within hours, the local press had got wind of the tragic story unfolding in Lutz.
Monday morning, came in just expecting to do the normal reporting I do of the week, and instead got a phone call that I'd be helping cover breaking news and cops beat that day. I went out there not having any idea what to expect, and then it turned out to be one of the most horrific crimes that that community had seen. There were dozens of sheriff investigator vehicles. There was an incredible amount of emergency personnel, investigators out there. They had us backed up a block away just to keep prying eyes from the extensive crime scene.
Details of the crime were filtering through to the press.
Hearing about the nature of that crime really seemed that whoever did this had no humanity left.
The violence against Lisa and the incredible violence against the children as well is absolutely breathtaking. I don't think there are words to describe how awful that scene must have been.
All along the street, investigators would walk in and come back out, and it was shocking to see how it impacted them as well. There were officers who were holding each other and others that had all the color out of their face from going in and coming out.
Detective Dale Bunton remembers arriving at Lisa's property.
At that point, multiple detectives had responded. The scene had been taped off. When they were describing to the detectives outside of the scene how bad inside was, it was a very graphic description about the mutilation that was done to these victims and the extent of the blood around the house. This was a pretty horrific scene.
Reporters started speaking to the neighbors to try and glean some information about the family who lived there.
They kept everyone back quite a way, but the neighbors had come out and filled the street. That street's a very quiet street. That's what made it such a shocking ordeal for some of them, that they had seen the victims just a day earlier, and that's kind of how Lutz was. Neighbors knew each other.
The press were also being given information by the police.
Throughout the day, we had multiple updates from the sheriff's spokeswoman. In between the updates, obviously there's chatter, there's information that trickles out, and until it's confirmed, it's still not official. But one of the pieces of information that had trickled out before was there was someone found in the closet. The neighbors knew that Lisa had a boyfriend. No one thought that that's who had done it.
What the press and the neighbors didn't know at that point was that police already had their suspect in custody. And what Edward Covington would tell detectives in his interview
I was a time bomb waiting to explode.
would shock them to the core. On May 12, 2008, police had been called to the scene of a horrific triple murder in Hillsborough County, Florida. 26-year-old Lisa Freeberg and her children, 7-year-old Zachary and 2-year-old Savannah, had been found butchered inside their home. Lisa's boyfriend, Edward Covington, had been discovered concealed in the closet.
Hiding in the cupboard is very strange behavior. There could be an element in that he had nowhere to go. Where was he going to go? He could not escape that he was responsible for what had gone on in that house. The forensics would have been absolutely everywhere.
On May 14, 2008, after he'd been assessed by doctors in a secure hospital, Edward Covington was interviewed by detectives.
Before we talk to you about anything, we have to read you your Miranda rights.
Covington's amazingly calm and collected. He's not weeping and wailing, and he confesses to the killings.
It was as if I'm just sitting talking to, someone about what we had for dinner last night. I think he was wanting to get it off of his chest.
Covington gave detectives his side of the story. He'd been drinking and using crack cocaine the night before Mother's Day.
He wants to take her car to go get more drugs, and then he gets upset because she won't allow him to.
He knew that by combining alcohol and the cocaine he was using, it was going to cause a bad reaction. He still did it anyway.
He wanted what he wanted, and he didn't care what was going to be in his way. To lead to this type of violence on this family and to take 3 people out of the lives of all their loved ones is horrible.
At approximately 10 in the morning, and already simmering with rage, Covington found 2-year-old Savannah out of bed and lying on the couch.
I asked her what she was doing up, and she just started to cry, and that's it. That is the last recollection of being in control I know of.
So then the very next thing you remember
is all this chaos going on.
What's the chaos?
Killing.
2-year-old Savannah was the first to experience Covington's wrath.
He admitted everything he did, telling me how brave she was, because I asked, was she scared? Was she screaming? Was she crying? And he's like, oh no, she was so brave. And he seemed so proud of that.
Savannah, you said the first thing you did is you sliced her jugular.
Yes, sir.
He was just as a matter of fact about everything he did. But he did indeed almost cut that little girl in half.
Lisa Freeberg had been awoken by the sound of the attack on her daughter.
Lisa came out, and he then turned his violence on her. She had multiple stab wounds, blows to her head.
I could tell she had stopped breathing. I could feel her body go limp.
After killing Lisa, Covington had then turned his murderous rage onto a sleeping 7-year-old Zachary.
What about Zachary? Where was he at? Did he ever come out?
He was in his top bunk. I think I stabbed him 3 times.
He said that there was really no movement, fight, nothing. Neither one of the kids put up a fight.
You're this close to this person when you're stabbing them, or you're cutting their throat, or you're doing all those other things. That's personal. That's a different level.
Covington was quite open that he was responsible for the killings, but what he never did was offer any kind of explanation about why he did it.
Troy tried to determine a motive for the murders.
There was a lot of details that we had to continually ask. because he cut the boy's penis off. So my thought is, what is the purpose behind this? Is this sexually driven? And he literally was like, oh gosh, no.
There was no sexual arousal in any aspect of what transpired.
I think he'd have deflected from that because that's something that he would not want people saying about him, that he was a sex offender. He would rather be thought of as angry than being sexually motivated. And I think he'd have been quite adept at trying to get the police to concentrate on the anger and ignore the sexual motivation.
Detectives questioned Covington about where he'd been found hiding.
What made you hide in the closet?
Oh.
Do you remember going into the closet?
I remember walking in there and slipping and falling down, but I don't remember what I was going in for.
Most times you'll be interviewing somebody, there's some level of remorse, right, for what they did. This one was definitely way different.
As the interrogation continued, Dale was tasked with investigating 35-year-old Covington's background.
Even with somebody who confesses immediately, you still need to build that case to prove it.
Dale questioned Covington's previous employers.
He had worked for the Department of Corrections. They explained to me that they did have problems with him, disciplinary issues, the tardiness and the just not even showing up for work. He also had investigations on him for abusing inmates.
On May 14th, Dale got a call from a potential witness to the Mother's Day murders.
This gentleman was friends of a man that lived right next door to the scene. He was helping him install a roof on his deck. And while he was there, he and his friend kept hearing noises coming from the crime scene before it was known to be a crime scene. And he was looking over there, and he saw a window that was unobscured. The blinds were pulled off to the side. And he saw the gentleman that he knew frequented there. He could tell he was striking something. He would also hear a subsequent, what he thought was a dog yelping in pain. It was later determined that that dog was beaten with a hammer. Being beaten 15 or more times, one after another, after another, after another. It's just so cold.
I think he did that just out of spite because even though he already killed my sister, he wanted to hurt her more because he knew that she loved all animals, and that was another way to get her.
Animals, for some reason, are my weak point now. I can disassociate myself from the human aspect usually pretty good. When I get into the animals, I have a more difficult time.
Dale needed to find out if the man in the window was indeed Edward Covington.
I went back to the office and used the suspect's photo as a base and then created a photo pack of similar looking individuals so that they could do an identification of the person that they saw at the scene. And I told him, I want you to study it. I don't want you to just pick one. And after 11 seconds, he said it was this one right here. And he identified Edward Covington.
It didn't come as a shock when he was named as a suspect. It just didn't make sense any other way than it to be Edward Covington, covered in blood, found in the closet.
Edward Covington was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of abuse of a dead body, and 1 count of animal cruelty. He'd confessed to the brutal and senseless murders of the family who'd put their trust in him and allowed him into their home. It seemed he was willing to take accountability for his actions, but that was about to change. On May 14, 2008, in Hillsborough County, Florida, 35-year-old Edward Covington had confessed to the Mother's Day murders of his girlfriend Lisa and her 2 children, 7-year-old Zachary and 2-year-old Savannah.
If you look at all the facts, it seems, what other recourse does he have, really, other than just fall on the sword? Or is he going to take a chance and hope that he gets lucky? And that's exactly what he tried to do.
Despite his detailed confession, at his plea hearing on June the 5th, 2008, Covington pled not guilty.
For almost 6 years, Covington fought to be considered incapable of standing trial because of a mental imbalance. In other words, I'm not guilty because I'm mad.
This man is highly manipulative. He must have known that he was not going to be able to beat the forensics. All he can do is try to defend what he did. Now, one of his ways of defending himself is to raise the idea that I'm mentally ill, that I had a psychotic moment. Maybe that had something to do with crouching in the bedroom, hiding in the cupboard, just adding to this idea that this man is insane. And certainly the crime scene looks like only an insane person could have done that.
Covington, he would work the system, and that's exactly what he did for all those years before he actually came to trial.
Ultimately, he was deemed competent to stand trial, and on October the 22nd, 2014, over 6 years since the murders, 42-year-old Edward Covington finally appeared at the Hillsborough County Circuit Court in Florida. The following day, after the opening statements had been read, Covington changed his plea to guilty and waived his right to a jury for the penalty phase of his trial.
And that might look as if this is a man who's accepting responsibility for what he's done. But it's equally possible that he's reached the end of the process. This trial's going ahead now. All of his insanity pleas and everything, that's all been done. Now, if the trial goes ahead, all the detail comes out. And the only way to protect himself from that is to plead guilty, so there is no trial. No jury gets to hear all of that stuff that might make him look like a sexual predator, or in some way he doesn't want to be represented. So I think it's quite possible that that guilty plea at the last minute is another manipulation of the system to his benefit.
Detective Troy Morgan was called to testify at the sentencing hearing.
We started playing the interview, and Covington asked not to be present because he didn't want to relive it again, which I thought was selfish. He's worried about himself, which I guess at this point in time, I guess that's all he's going to worry about. The judge made him come every single day to say, I don't want to be here, and then they let him go sit in a holding cell. Everything about Covington is selfish. Everything is motivated around what he wants, what he needs, and that was clear on this murder.
The findings of the autopsies were presented to the judge.
The youngest child, the 2-year-old daughter, Savannah, that was especially brutal. She had radiating fractures in leg bones, arm bones. It was learned that he probably had picked her up by the legs and threw her against the wall and into the couch. She had multiple stab wounds, just outrageously brutal. Savannah, I'm sure, felt the terror of what he was doing.
Lisa had multiple injuries. Her skull was fractured, she'd been stabbed in the chest, and her throat had been cut.
Zachary also had multiple stab wounds in his chest, in his back, in his neck.
the numerous psychiatrists who'd evaluated Covington also gave evidence.
One of the psychiatrists working for the state described him to the court as threatening, aggressive, hostile, and angry. And I think that's exactly what he was, and he couldn't control it.
The details that came out during the hearing were almost too much for the family to comprehend.
He's not human. He's a monster. How could you do that to a 2-year-old? How could you do that to a 7-year-old? How could you do that to a mother that was just trying to survive and find love? How could he do that? I don't know. But that's why I consider him a monster and not human.
Lisa's mum, Barbara, was invited to read a victim impact statement to the court.
I miss Lisa, Zachary, and Savannah with everything in me. I miss them so deeply that most times I can't stand it. I miss their voices, their smiles, their hugs, and their kisses. The day I found them is the day I died too. My life has never been the same.
For the family, the pain of losing Lisa, Zachary, and Savannah still weighs heavily on their hearts.
Lisa did so much for me, and I can never tell her how much I love her. I wish she was still around because I miss her that much. I miss her friendship. I miss her guidance. She was my world.
On May 29, 2015, at the Hillsborough County Circuit Court, 42-year-old Edward Covington was sentenced to death.
I would say that Edward Covington's murder and dismemberment of this family was probably the most evil murder that I worked in my career. Thankfully, we won't have to worry about him hurting anybody else ever again.
Before this, I wouldn't be sure if I believed in the death penalty. However, after going through what my family has gone through, I found that it is okay to be not thankful, but accepting of the death penalty sentence.
Edward Covington remains on death row at the Union Correctional Institution in Florida, awaiting his fate.
I look forward to that day, and I think that's when we can truly close the door and move on once he is executed. I want this behind us. I want the monster gone.
Covington slaughtered an entire family in a murderous, drug-fueled rage. He went on to mutilate and violate their bodies in one of the most horrific crimes that Hillsborough County has ever seen. He's never apologized for his actions or offered any reasonable explanation for them, which is why Edward Covington will go down in history as one of the world's most evil killers.